It's Monday, October 24th, 2011. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we talk about the Amazons from the servering perspective.
Web services.
Let's do this. Independent of the show we're doing right now, we had Luke Crane come into the studio. We're going to have him, we recorded something fun we're going to put up as soon as we get a chance. But couldn't find the extra microphone.
Oh, why couldn't you find it?
You couldn't find it either.
Actually, I could and did.
Actually, didn't Emily find it?
No.
Oh, she also failed in the same spot.
I found it.
In the end.
Yes, and you, A, failed at cleaning, and B, failed at looking.
No, it had fallen off of something.
Sure, no, it was in the corner.
Yeah, it had fallen from
It was in the
above.
corner of the closet.
I would not have put it in the bottom corner of the closet on my own.
Right, because you didn't put it anywhere.
No.
That was your problem.
If I didn't put it anywhere.
Just
then
like you let the 52
how did it
DC
get
comics
there?
get all over the place instead of keeping them in one pile.
They were organized as far as I cared.
Yeah.
They were fine.
So we needed to do an episode, and we couldn't fucking find them.
I didn't need them. I knew what was in all of them.
I didn't remember because I'd read them before.
Now, had you said that was a prerequisite, you'd said, hey, Rim, I need all those comics available or I can't do the show.
I could do the show, just not as well.
I just assumed that you had notes on them and remembered
I did have notes on them. I do have
You
notes
didn't
on
seem
them.
to remember much of what happened in most of those comics.
Only the 3 or 4 that you didn't have. They weren't memorable.
Some of them were quite memorable.
You
Legion
you
Lost.
didn't catch my
I
funny.
remember.
I remembered Legion Lost as well.
I remember it. I remember the slaughter of children.
Okay. So yeah, technologies. We actually came up with like 3 technology show ideas, which should get us through a month and a half.
Yep. Now,
all right.
yes.
Woo!
But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about this story about Anonymous taking down some child porn websites.
Nice.
Because stuff like this,
That's the kind of stuff I was telling them to do. In fact, let me go pull up the blog post where I listed the things they should do they're not doing.
Well, you see stuff like this occasionally, usually the debate. People will talk about black hat versus white hat, and someone always brings up the notion of, why don't we hack for good? Like, why don't we hack the bad guys?
I wrote a whole blog post
Go
about
take
it.
down the botnet. Make a worm that installs antivirus. Stuff like that. It's pretty rare to see anyone actually try to do that sort of white hat vigilantism on the internet.
Yep.
And I feel like this is an interesting trend because on one hand,
Sometimes what people have done is they've used the internet to harass someone who is guilty of a real world crime. Like, remember the lady who put the cat in the trash?
yep, but at the same time, you have to be wary. If someone wasn't convicted of a crime in a court of law, is it really fair to vigilante them? I mean, do you really know if they did it?
If you saw a video of them do it and you know you got the right person, I mean, you know they're going to be guilty. And
Nah, but you could easily. There was recently a story about a waitress who posted on Reddit or somewhere about.
This isn't like, a death row case where someone didn't have the DNA evidence. This is, we have a
If the
video.
glove does not fit.
We have a clear video of a person doing something. It's like, okay.
I'm just saying, there was recently a story where a waitress basically called out a guy for not leaving a tip, and the internet found the guy and harassed him, and it turned out that wasn't actually the right guy.
Yeah, you got to make sure you got the right guy.
Yeah. So I didn't really read the deep details of the story, but it appears.
And not leaving a tip is not worthy of internet harassment. Putting a cat in a trash bin is a little more worthy because cats power the internet.
Well, the
and
internet.
You're damaging the internet by throwing out a cat.
The internet is really a revival of ancient Egypt coupled with pornography. I mean, what does the internet worship? The 2 most important things on the internet are cats
Dead people.
and pornography.
Dead people.
Dead people. No, I think pornography and cats are higher than dead people.
Dead people are up there.
They're not that up there.
And yeah, they are.
Live celebrity people are up there more than dead people.
I think they're equal. In fact, dead people sort of get this special power boost when they die.
Only for a short time.
Anyway, because their souls go into the internet and boost their internet. Anyway, so yeah, here's my list. It's actually, I wrote a blog post on my personal blog as a list of 10 things hackers should do that would be so awesome, yet incredibly illegal.
Is one of those make a virus that wipes out computers?
No, maybe. I don't know. I'd forget. Let's see. Number 1, instead of hacking, say, Sony to turn off the PlayStation Network, hack iTunes or Steam to give everyone all the music, all the movies, all the games. Just imagine if everyone's Steam account suddenly had every game. Or if everyone's iTunes account suddenly had every music and every video and every app. That would be the shit. Also,
Wouldn't that get unhacked right away?
probably, but it'd be kind of awesome. I mean, you could download shit before the hack was, turned off. Plus, depends how good the hack is, right? It could theoretically be so good that they would have to turn the service off or something, right? Anyway, it would still be awesome. Also, you could remove region locking on Hulu or Spotify or something like that. That would be cool. You could go and steal the source code to important things. Remember they stole the source code of like Half-Life 2? Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Imagine if
Nothing ever came of that, though.
Imagine if someone stole the source code to say Photoshop or something fucking useful. Right? That would be awesome. iOS, another great thing to steal the source code for. Windows, also a good idea. Someone could hack into an ISP to remove bullshit, such as filtering, bandwidth limiting, wiretapping, etc. Hack into the Great Firewall of China and just turn it off. Those are great ideas.
Thing is, some of those things are probably not feasible for...
Yeah, they're incredibly difficult.
For the people... Because the people who are doing these internet hacks are not...
I didn't say they were easy. I said they were good ideas.
All right.
But
anyway,
it's not 100% infeasible.
I don't know. On one hand, this is Batman. The debate comes down to whether or not Batman is okay. And I'm really ambivalent. On one hand, taking down a bunch of child porn websites, and it looks like they were pretty legitimately child porn websites.
Well, I mean, if you go into IRC, just open up MIRC, download it for free, which is illegal, right? And just look at the list of IRC servers, pick one, and then list the channels in the IRC server, you're going to see child porn channels. I don't know how come the government can't just go and arrest everyone in those channels. Is it really that hard? I mean, obviously
it's hard to track them down.
Obviously, the people in foreign countries, right? But I mean, you could just go and there's people there. Child porn's right there.
Maybe
it's
Scott,
not hiding that
there's a chance that every one of those channels is nothing but cops.
It is possible that every one of those channels is nothing but cops.
So here's the story. I'm just going to quote the quote from Slashdot quoted. According to Security Daily News, Anonymous has taken down more than 40 darknet-based child porn websites over the last week. Details of some of the hacks have been released via Pastebin, including personal details of some users of a site named Lolita City.
They actually just had a straight-up website named Lolita City, and they got away with it?
I imagine you had to have an account to log in. I was going through the Pastebin, and it was kind of funny, because Pastebin's always a weird place to go around, but it was half like reports of how they got them and who they got, and also half like the people from this Lolita website getting mad or talking to them in chat rooms or freaking out or worrying that their contact info would get out. And also a lot of Occupy Wall Street crap just kind of mixed in.
Yeah, I read an article about Pastebin once that talked about how a lot of the Pastebin stuff is actually just like passwords, like lists of passwords and logins for like legitimate porn sites, that charge money so you can go look at the porn for free. And I think really this is what's happened to Pastebin because most of the coders have moved to GitHub and they use gists now. And Pastebin's original purpose of posting code has sort of gone away. But people who just want to anonymously put a piece of text that's not associated to anything on the internet and link to it, right, have been using it and for this purpose. Usually nefarious people. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I wish I could figure out exactly how that evolved in that direction.
So Scott, is it okay to Batman child pornography peddlers? Is this okay?
You're not. See, this is the thing.
I'm
right?
asking you because you always want to bring the debate. Forget law. Forget whatever. Morally, is this okay?
This particular activity is absolutely okay, and I'm going to tell you why.
All right.
Because unlike, say, the cat thing or anything like that, right? It's like they're not actually going to hurt these people. They're not going to pass judgment on these pedophiles.
I see where you're going.
They're not going to the pedophiles' houses and beating them up or
not yet. That might happen.
Calling them on the phone, harassing them, right? All they're doing is taking down the child porn sites. That would be like...
And publishing personal details of the people who are on the sites, thus probably leading to harassment and retaliation.
Yes, but they're not actually doing the harassment or the retaliation
So it's okay
themselves.
to give someone the tools to harass and the motivation, but not to actually do it yourself.
Is it okay to give you a BitTorrent client, a torrent file, a computer, and an internet connection?
So some would argue no.
Not they. Is it okay for me to sell you a gun?
We're in New York, so it's actually really hard.
I'm just saying, but is it, it's okay. Is it okay for me to give you a CD burner? You might burn some CDs.
But it's different if you give someone a CD burner and the instructions and a link to the media.
Fine, I'll give you, is it okay for me to put bomb-making instructions on the internet?
Nah.
No.
No, I just said, because when I first got access to the internet when I was a kid,
The first thing you look for was Bob making instructions.
my family's sitting around the computer, like everyone, and the neighbor, like some friends of the family, we're all sitting around the computer. Everyone's so excited. And I go on the internet, and I search for, quote, bomb making instructions.
Not how to make a bomb.
I searched for bomb making instructions.
There you go.
The next thing I searched for was the Anarchist Cookbook. And then I started searching for games.
Yep, games it was. You didn't let me finish my list of things, but I'll move on anyway.
You can continue your list if you really want.
Okay, sure. I'll do it real quick. Hack into this. Some guy sort of did this. Hack into all the academic journal systems and take all the academic articles from all the journals and put them up somewhere for free. Hack into J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, etc., and just bring them down. That'll do a lot more than occupying their sidewalk. Hack into government and corporate back office systems, not to take them down, but to find evidence on the exchange servers of corruption and people doing evil, exposing them, and then they go to jail because someone else.
You saw that article, I'm assuming. There is a piece of software that the financial world, like the executives of companies, use to communicate securely.
Mm-hmm.
And it got malwared.
Nice.
And hackers might have gotten access to pretty much all
now
the
they
internal...
gotta find the evidence of some big CEO who's got too much money actually doing something criminal, exposing him, and then he can end up with the Enron guys, one of the few CEOs to actually end up in jail. Because you know what? I'm guarantee if we could actually read all those emails, you know that like 90% of those guys have done something worthy of going to jail, right? So the fact that they're not in jail is whatever. Bring down the firewall of China. I already said that one. Attack the TV satellites and turn them all off.
I don't think that's as relevant as it used to be.
No, but it would still be awesome, especially I wrote in this blog post, quote,
during the Super Bowl.
No, quote me, at the very least, replace Fox News with Al Jazeera English. Also, the best one, at least, right? Disable all the nuclear missiles. I know they're not connected to the internet, but I'm just saying, if you could just disable all the nuclear launch systems on the planet, like at once, sort of like in, what was that comic? Rising Stars, I think is what it was called. Have you read that?
No.
Oh, I should give that to you.
Who wrote it?
I think it's the same guy who wrote the real Ghostbusters cartoon, if I remember correctly. JMS? Let me look it up.
Really?
Yeah, let me look this up real quick. Yes, it was indeed J. Michael Straczynski who wrote Rising Stars, and he also wrote the real Ghostbusters cartoon series. And it's pretty good.
All right.
You would like it. Scott Johnson would really like it. I think he might have read it already.
He probably did.
Probably. All right, so news, right. If you didn't know, the Nexus Prime, which is now named the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. So it's like the Galaxy 2 is real popular and the Nexus Prime was real popular.
But I have the Nexus S.
Well, now they've got the Samsung Galaxy Nexus is coming out. It's going to be the only phone, or at least the first phone, to have the new version of Android, Ice Cream Sandwich.
Conrad really wants to come on Geeknights and talk about that.
So here's the thing, right? It's like they had gingerbread, which I imagine was you have, right?
I have that.
Right? The tablets, the Android tablets, have honeycomb. Honeycomb was not on phones. Ice Cream Sandwich is supposedly going to be on tablets and phones, the same Android. In other news, this phone actually looks like a nice phone. The only problem I have with it, which I don't think is a problem that you'll have with it, is that it's kind of big, right? But I mean, it's about as big as your Nexus S.
My Nexus S is not big. It's smaller than an iPhone.
No, it's not.
The old iPhone.
Maybe the original iPhone. But actually, I realized, like,
the thing is,
we were comparing the iPhone to Android sizes, and it's like, yeah, the other phones are way too big.
The thing is, this phone is pretty much all screen, and it's actually really thin.
Yeah. Oh, the thinness is there all the time, right? It's all about. I'm talking about the width and the height. Right, the iPhone is 3.5 inch, which is like the perfect size. But these phones are like 4.65 inch. It's a whole extra inch diagonally over the iPhone. That's a lot, right? And it makes a big difference in ways that you might not realize. Someone posted an article and they were like, "Why is the iPhone the size it is?" And the reason is because Apple figured it out. The average length of someone's thumb is so you can hit the other side of it with your thumb if you're only holding it on one side.
Yeah,
right?
You know what? I have plenty of extra thumb space here.
Oh, yours actually looks smaller than the Nexus.
It probably is.
It might be, but yeah.
I looked at before. I was thinking
we should measure your inches.
And I was looking at the HTCs, and they were just so big. I was like, "Fuck this."
Yeah, this Galaxy Nexus looks pretty big, but it's running the next Android, which is supposed to be better. But you know what? I went and I downloaded the Android dev kit on my new work computer.
Oh.
Right? Which is an i7. And everybody knows that the Android dev kit is slow because it's running in an ARM emulator, right? As opposed to running, So that's to be expected. It's slow. I didn't care about the slowness. I knew there was a reason for it, whatever. I actually tried to use it, though. And even if I pretended it was really fast, it was just really bad. Like, I couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on or how to use it.
Did you read the documentation?
Yeah, you don't need to read the documentation to use an iPhone. That's all I'm saying, right? It's like people always talk and they sort of take for granted, like, oh, Apple's GUIs are so great and everyone else's interfaces are so bad. And, I actually disagree when it comes to OS X that Apple is so great. People disagree with me, but whatever. I actually like, Windows better than OS X and such. But when it comes to the iPhone and the iPad, the interface improvements matter so much more when the device is smaller. Just same thing with the iPod. It's like I'll pay more for an iPod over a Zune because the interface design matters more when the device is less. So I think I'm probably looking at iPhone 5 a year from now.
Thing is, I literally have no problems with my Nexus, which, Scott, by the way, is 2.48 inches wide.
Oh, wow.
And 4.88 inches high.
Oh, what's the diagonal?
I have no idea.
The diagonal's the number we're talking about.
Yeah,
here.
I don't know what the number
is. So the
is.
iPhone has a 3.5-inch diagonal, and the Nexus the Samsung Galaxy Nexus has a 4.65-inch diagonal.
See, the thing is, mine is narrow. It's narrow, but it's slightly taller to make up for it.
Yeah, I don't know. We gotta do some size comparisons.
I can trivially thumb the entire thing.
All right. Well,
And it's pretty much the perfect size to fit in my pocket. So you're not going to sell me on size unless...
Well, at least on your particular phone. But there are a lot of these other Android phones.
Like I said, the other Androids I looked at
like
before I got the
Evo
Nexus S,
4G is enormous.
Oh my God, the Hero was enormous.
They're so big. I think this is one of the big ones.
Yeah,
I don't
so
know why they're making
then.
these phones so big.
I'm waiting to see if I'll be able to upgrade to the ice cream sandwich on this phone.
I think from what I heard, you will be able to
That's
get ice
what
cream
I've heard
sandwich.
too, but I haven't seen a confirmation.
But you don't get it immediately, right? That's another thing with the iPhone. Everybody just gets updated all immediately at the same time.
Yeah.
But, there are plenty of negatives to iPhone. Like, they brought out this Wi-Fi sync. It's bullshit. It doesn't work. Fuck them.
Are you sure it doesn't work?
It does. It works, but it doesn't do what you want it to do.
Okay, the Galaxy Nexus is a little bigger. It's 2.67 inches wide instead of 2.48.
That's a pretty big difference, actually.
Yeah. But anyway, things of the day. I watched RoboCop with Emily last night.
I watched that a couple months ago.
I hadn't seen RoboCop since I was single-digit age.
Yeah, RoboCop 1 is really good, and contrary to what I may have said on another trivia-related podcast with Atomic Wars, Frank Miller actually only wrote RoboCops 2 through X. He didn't write.
So he wrote all the bad ones.
He didn't write RoboCop 1. He wrote all the other RoboCop.
Yeah, we'll do a show on it, I think.
Or at least help write all the other RoboCop.
Because I have plenty to say about RoboCop.
He was not involved in RoboCop 1. RoboCop 1 is great. The other ones are less great.
RoboCop 1 stands out well beyond other movies from 1987.
Yeah, RoboCop 1 is almost as good as Terminator 2.
It is a way good movie.
Except the claymation, while cool, doesn't hold up 100%.
That wasn't claymation. It was stop motion.
But
it wasn't. But notice the funny homage. There was the stop motion dinosaur in the SUX ad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, it would have been, it just doesn't hold up graphically, but it was still really good for its time. But,
So I have for you, we're going to do a RoboCop show, so I'm not going to make this the RoboCop show.
Nice.
We have to do one. I had a lot to say.
Okay.
But I have for you 2 RoboCop-related things of the day.
There's about 10 billion of them.
Yeah, but these in particular
If
are
you search for
great.
RoboCop on YouTube, you're going to see infinity awesome things.
So apparently RoboCop saved Sting in a wrestling.
Not Harvey, the musician Sting.
No. Sting the wrestler.
Sting the wrestler, the guy with the face paint.
Yep.
And the blonde hair.
So it looks like RoboCop. I don't know what else I can say other than RoboCop rips the front off of that cage and lets Sting out.
Okay.
And wrestling is exactly what wrestling is.
Professional wrestling.
So the other one I want to do is not this. You'll find a million things like the RoboCop KFC commercial, and there's a ton of Japanese and Korean commercials with RoboCop in them for like fried chicken and noodles and whatever. My thing of the day is the first episode of the RoboCop cartoon. because I think many of our listeners are either too old or not, or too young. You have to be in the sweet spot to have watched the RoboCop cartoon on TV. Like now, RoboCop's kind of like it had a resurgence.
It was on for like a minute, so if you weren't watching it that Saturday morning cartoons on that day, you didn't.
No,
see
there
it.
was a large line of toys related to it. It was actually
there were plenty of RoboCop toys.
Yeah, RoboCop was a really huge franchise actually in the 80s and the early 90s, and then it faded away. I mean, there's a reason why there's like 3 movies, the NES game, all these games and everything. And a lot of people don't really, I don't know, like it was forgotten. The next generation never even saw RoboCop.
Yeah.
So yeah, go watch RoboCop and watch the RoboCop cartoon.
It's also funny because they talk about like future Detroit, but it's present Detroit.
Yeah. In the dark future, Detroit is a hellhole filled with Fist of the North Star bad guys.
It came true. All right, so check this out.
I'm checking.
There's this thing called the Google AI, it's AI Challenge Ants Fall 2011, sponsored by Google. It used to also be involved with some University of Waterloo or something, but they're not involved anymore, but some of the people are, whatever. The point is, it's an AI challenge. There's this game involving little ants, and you have to write a bot that plays this game, and you submit your bot, and it competes against the other bots. Even if you don't know how to program, this is a tutorial. If you follow the tutorial and submit the tutorial bot, you will do well because a lot of people have submitted bots a lot worse than the tutorial bot. I submitted the tutorial bot and I moved up the rankings very quickly, like the top few hundred people.
So I'm playing around with this too. Like it's pretty accessible in terms of like learning stuff about coding AI or coding strategy for a game.
Mm-hmm.
I like how you lose if like it has time. Like you have to submit your moves in a certain time frame. If you miss your turn, all your answers die. You're done. You're out.
Yep.
So it prevents the analysis paralysis situation of waiting for someone to take their goddamn turn.
Yep. But yeah, so I tried to write a better bot for it, and I figured, well, I'll just take the tutorial bot, which is already kind of good, right? And what I'll do is I'll change the pathfinding to use A*, and I did successfully. But so it finds much better paths. The ants don't get lost; they go straight for the food, right? The problem is it's slow. You have to get your turn. You get your orders in on time, which is very short amount of time. Otherwise, you just lose. So, yeah, I tried. I improved the performance a lot, but not enough. So, with a little more work, though, I think I'm gonna maybe.
I got a really good strategy.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna. You're just gonna. I know you told me this strategy.
So basically, what I'm actually trying to do, and it was originally I wanted it to march in formation, but that logic's really hard, especially when I'm not a coder. So instead, I'm going to try to get my ants to form up once I have enough ants. And then that will defend itself as long as possible. I want to form up a gigantic ant penis that then marches around destroying the other ants with its, I guess, launching ants out from within itself.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it would be funny to, for people who are playing this game to run into my troll AI.
Yeah.
I also I haven't found anyone trolling this game yet.
No, but I've seen some really clever bots out there. I'm not going to try to win because that's well beyond my abilities. Especially, you're not going to win writing something in Python. It's just too slow. Someone writing in Java or C is going to just have an advantage straight up, and I'm too lazy, and I have other things to do. But this is kind of fun. I'm going to get at least one. I just want to beat the tutorial bot. If I can make a better bot than the tutorial bot that actually works on time and isn't too slow, I'll be happy. But you should definitely get into this. There's been a lot of these before, like computer program games, but this is definitely the most accessible of them that I have seen. So if you're going to try one of them out, this is the one to go for.
So in the meta moment, the book club book previously was The Year of the Eye of the Arm. The one we're doing right now is
Double Book Club.
Oh my God!
The
all
Little
the way.
Prince, and also Wind, Sand, and Stars, both by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
Uh-huh.
Watch out! What's the autopostal? Also, conventions. Burning Apocalypse Con is coming soon on 11/11/11, and we're awesome.
Are we?
And
I'm in
also,
Japan.
Yes, also completely unrelated. I bought, those little wooden steamy things they have at the Chinese restaurants for dim sum?
Oh, you got some.
I bought some.
What are you gonna steam first?
Dumplings.
Dumplings? You gonna make dumplings?
I'm gonna go buy little dumpling wrappers, and then you scoop some mush into them.
How much does yours stack up? How many components?
It's only 2 components, but they're actually big.
You can put dumplings in one and asparagus in the other.
I could.
Yeah.
The trick is because the top one gets less steam than the bottom one, you have to put different things in them.
Yeah,
So-
you put the asparagus up top.
But there's another all strategy. If you want to make just a fuck ton of dumplings, put one dumpling in, then pick it up and put the other one under it after a little bit, and then they'll both be evenly heated.
You're a genius. No one ever thought of that before.
Actually, the instructions told me that I did. All right. So today's show, I'm going to talk about something that I use a lot at work. It's been pretty popular lately. It's the Amazon Web Services. So
My work uses it, but because I don't do the tech like I used to, so I don't interact with it other than getting them for me to use.
So basically, here's the deal, right? Amazon had a lot of computers that they used for their computing to make Amazon.com go. But they had problems, which was you have to have enough computers so that at the biggest traffic on Black Friday, Amazon doesn't go down. But say on a Sunday afternoon in January or 2 a.m. on a Sunday, right, in January, nobody is coming to Amazon, and all those servers are sitting there doing nothing. You're wasting money on them because you still have to pay to keep them on. You could go turn them off, the extra ones, but still, it costs you money to have this hardware you're not using. So what Amazon did is they started Amazon Web Services, which is, hey, let's host, let's make sort of a web host that is dynamic, where you can turn servers on and off and use exactly the amount of server that you need with a little bit of overhead, so you're not wasting money. And then all those leftover servers, we can actually sell them as hosting to other people, right, when we're not using them. And that's exactly what they did. Amazon Web Services started out with the Mechanical Turk. That was the first Amazon Web Service.
Yeah, you can read back through Slashdot if you want to learn about kind of the early steps or the history of all this.
Yeah, so people, they call this like cloud computing, but you know what? It's not fucking. All it is web hosting. It's no different than Linode or DreamHost or any other virtual private server hosting, right?
Well, I think the way to call it cloud is really in the level of automation and services provided, like being able to right click and say, new server, make the server.
Linode does that.
Huh? Does it also do Akamai style, hosting out there on demand?
Okay, well, see, that's the thing that Amazon Web Services has. It's not just one service, right? EC2, the Elastic Compute Cloud, right, is give me Linux or Windows computers for hosting. That's all it is, right? I mean, it has a little bit of fanciness, like in the ways that you can pay for the servers. Like, you can bid for spot instances, and like they might be just taken away from you at any time or given back to you at any time. So you can only do work on them, such as like encoding video, where you can do the work piecemeal and stop and start at any time.
Which is a very elegant way to make sure that the servers are utilized at the best possible price Amazon could get at any given time.
Or you can just say, give me a fucking computer, and they give you them, and that's, there's different sizes, and that's it, right? That's the Elastic Compute Cloud. So that's basic hosting. But what Amazon Web Services really has going for it is that unlike a typical virtual private server hosting company, they have all these other things that they can give you, right? Some of them are just specialized cases of EC2. For example, RDS. What's RDS? It's give me a computer that only has a database on it. That's all it is. There's a couple features in there, like automatic database backups and rollbacks and those sorts of things, but it's all it is just an interface. It's no different. It doesn't really cost much different if you just got a regular machine with EC2 and installed MySQL on it. But, they'll just do RDS. It's a little bit more managed for you if you just need a database server and you don't need anything else on there, They also offer Oracle, and like you can pay as you go on the Oracle license or you can bring your own Oracle license. They got stuff going on like that.
Oh, Oracle.
All right. Elasticache, same kind of thing. They just give you a computer with Memcached, and that's it. Instead of you buying a machine, installing Memcached on it, they just give you a Memcache machine. It's like, all right, sure. But the real fanciness comes in with all these other services that they have, right? And the one that I want to talk about the most is the one that's most useful to normal people that people seem to ignore, and you're probably using it without realizing it, is Amazon S3.
I mean, I have my own account. I back stuff up to it.
Yeah, it's Amazon's simple storage service. Now, what the simple storage service is, and this is why people sort of sometimes get it wrong, is they think of it as a hard drive, right? They think of it as storage, and it is storage, but it's not a hard drive. It doesn't have a file system like your computer has a file system. Even though it looks like it to an amateur, it doesn't. And it also doesn't have any CPU resources at all, so it can't do any processing whatsoever. Actually, just recently they added the first processing feature to it, which is server-side encryption. They haven't had that before.
Oh, yeah, I got an email about that.
Yeah, they just added that, which is
nothing I have really needs to be encrypted, so I didn't really
and also server-side
bother playing with
encryption
it.
is pointless because now it's not encrypted on the way to the anyway.
Well, it depends. I mean, how do you upload it?
You have
Some
to you have to
SSL.
upload it with some SSL or whatever. But yeah, so what simple storage service is really is a key value store, right? When you go to S3 and you see something like photos / rims photos / rim is zardoz.jpg, right? Actually, that whole big path is just a key. And it just happens that in the interface, they split it up on the slashes to make it look like folders. But really, it's just one long, dumb list of keys, which are big, full file paths. And then the value is the data in the file. And that's it. That's all S3 can do. But you can, as a user, just pretend that doesn't mean anything to you and just upload all your files there, and they'll be super safe.
Yep. Now, that's all I really use it for right now is backing things up because it's relatively cheap for what I'm backing
Right.
up.
And the thing is, a lot of people say, oh, I'll just use Dropbox. It's easier. Oh, I'll just use, Libsyn. Or, I'll just, there's all these things that people use.
Well, we use Libsyn for Geeknights, but
Right.
that's just because it's way cheaper.
But there's these things people use to store files. What really all those things are using S3. You can just go right around the middleman and use S3. But in Libsyn's case, the middleman's actually cheaper than
Yeah.
the real deal.
Partly, I think it's the average podcast does not have that many episodes or listeners.
Yep.
We have this weird conundrum of having, we were in Libsyn near the beginning, so we've got
Yeah.
700-something episodes, any of which can be downloaded any random time.
Right. If you added up the bandwidth from all the downloads of all the episodes of Geeknights that have ever existed in a month, right? And then you multiply that by the number of bits, and you look at the Amazon S3 bandwidth cost, even though they've gone way down, that's a lot of fucking money. We cannot afford that. But yeah, S3 is way awesome. You should just use it, even if it's slightly difficult for you to get it going on. It's really not all that hard. Just ignore a lot of the fancy features. Make sure you have all your files set to private, and that's it. But here are some of the fancy features that S3 has that people don't know about, right? There's the reduced redundancy storage, which is like, see these files? I don't care if they get deleted by accident sometimes. Obviously, if they all got deleted, that would suck. But, try to keep them safe, but don't worry about it. And what Amazon does is they charge you less for those files. You can actually do it on a file-by-file basis on the same bucket, right? And if a file gets closed, they just delete it, and they send you a message like, hey, that file got deleted, just so you know. And what you use this for is if there are files that you can regenerate. So, for example, let's say you're generating thumbnails of images, and you're storing the thumbnails so that next time you don't have to regenerate them. You can just serve them up directly. But you don't really care if the thumbnail gets deleted by accident because, hell, you can just serve it. You can just regenerate it because you have the originals are not in reduced redundancy storage, and the thumbnails are.
So think of it as like cheaper storage caching.
Yeah, it's like cheap storage if you don't give a shit.
Or like, say you have a file you want to give to someone that's large, and you put it up to get people to download, maybe monetized or whatever.
Yeah.
You put it there because you're only going to have it available for a short amount of time. You don't need to keep it forever. You don't care.
Now, here's the real great thing about S3 is they added, well, you always had this ability, but now it's even better, is static websites. If you got a website and you don't want to use WordPress or Tumblr or any, dynamic web application to host it, you just want static HTML and JPEGs and JavaScripts, right? It's really good for something that's pretty much all JavaScripts, like a WebGL or application, or something that hits an API on some other machine, but you don't want to actually set up an Apache server because it's all JavaScript. You can just serve a static website entirely from S3, and it costs almost nothing unless you get a bajillion visitors.
One option is if you need to do dynamic stuff and say you get some hosting for that, you can put all your static files, like if it's a media site, on the S3, so it's secure and it's available in case your, somewhat shitty web hosting goes down. You can just bring up web hosting somewhere else and point at the same stuff.
Yep, but that could become expensive. I even calculated if you're going to do even something like a webcomic, right? How big your JPEGs multiplied by how many times the JPEGs are downloaded per month times the bandwidth cost, it can actually become like $80 a month just to put your webcomic JPEGs in S3. Like Penny Arcade probably could afford it, but it'd be a lot of monies compared to, say, Linode, where they don't care how many as long as you don't go over your bandwidth limit. It could be 20, the cheapest Linode is $20 a month and gives you a big limit, multiple gigabytes at no additional cost until you go over that limit. So if your number is under that, you might pay nothing. You'll pay $20 a month with Linode, but your bandwidth, even at half that limit on S3, it's going to cost you more than $20.
Now, this is why we use the
JPEGs.
subsidized Linode, because an episode of Geeknights is 60 megs or so.
Well, we use Libsyn, not Line.
Yeah, Libsyn, but
right.
60 megs or so per episode.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Times listeners times the long tail.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool. In addition to the S3, they've got this other thing, which is the CloudFront, right?
I have not used that at all.
So the way the CloudFront works is basically you say, hey, CloudFront, create a CloudFront. And they say, okay, do you want streaming or regular? And you say you can choose one or the other or both or whatever, right? And you say, okay, CloudFront, you see that machine, that S3 bucket over there? Well, yeah, serve that. Okay. So what this does is out in front of the people, instead of having people visit your S3 bucket and getting the files from the bucket, you use the DNS entry for the CloudFront. So people visit the CloudFront. And what happens is they're actually going to end up at a local server. It will take the files from your bucket and send them to servers all around the world, right, where people can get them from. So that way, if someone reads your webcomic in France, they actually download the JPEG from a French server. And if they're in California, they download the JPEG from a Californian server. And they keep adding new edge locations. They just added a new edge location in like Tokyo or the Southeast Asia. So if you want to, host videos online or stream videos online, you can use the streaming CloudFront. And now people can stream your videos from a server near them to watch it more quickly instead of having the whole world stream videos from one place, one server. This costs a lot of money. The more bandwidth you use, it costs even more money. But if you actually need that feature, which a lot of people do, it's so easy. It's like 3 clicks. It's great. The thing is, CloudFront is even better than that. You can actually use CloudFront without an S3 bucket. You can just have it point at any old DNS entry anywhere. So you can have CloudFront point at some machine you've got set even on Linode, but usually you're going to point it at an Amazon machine. And you can have an application that serves up dynamic shit as long as it always serves the same thing at the same URL, right? And then CloudFront will serve that out front. So for example, I was talking about thumbnails before. You could write a thing that will thumbnail images and serve them out, and then the people hit the CloudFront hits your server, the server generates the thumbnail, sends the thumbnail to the CloudFront. Now that thumbnail is in 20 places in the world where anyone can get it easily without even hitting your server, and in case that expires out in the world, the cache expires and people needs to hit your server again, you've stored the thumbnail in S3 where you can get it again without having to generate it again. So you can make like the ultimate thumbnail generator, amongst other things. You could have all sorts of crazy ideas of, ways to generate stuff. But the thing is, you can't use query parameters in the URL. It has to be the URL itself. So you need to have some sort of code like, /width/100/ something like that. You can't do $width equals. That will not work. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go through all the Amazon Web Services just because there's so many of them. But they've got a lot.
They're surprisingly easy to use too. Like you would really...
Well, here's the thing. I'm not gonna.
They're easy to use if you understand networking and basic system administration.
Well, sort of, right? I mean, I'm not gonna just be a salesman for Amazon here. There are some problems, right? The major problem they have is that they have this web interface, the console. It kind of sucks. I mean, I use it, it's getting better, but it still sucks in many ways. And a lot of times what happens is they add new services. For example, they have Route 53, which is an awesome DNS service. and there's no interface for it on the console. The only interface for it is the API. So you have to open up your whatever programming language you use, load up the API library, and that's the only way you can do anything with Route 53. Their DNS service is with the API.
Huh.
And a lot of the stuff is like that. They keep adding more stuff to the console, but they seem to put a lot of they have a new service, they'll just put the service out there before it's in the console. They have no problem with that. The console is like its own separate thing that goes at its own pace. And as a result, there's a lot of like alternative GUIs. Like I think there's a Firefox extension with a GUI for S3, and Ubuntu has Ubuntu Landscape you can use to manage all your, like a group of Ubuntu servers. So if you use Ubuntu in EC2, you can use Landscape to manage all your EC2 machines instead of using the Amazon console. There's all kinds of stuff like that going on about there. I don't know. Just, so the other problem with it, right, and this is actually, I think, my biggest problem with it, is take Linode, right, our hosting for the web, right? If there's a problem with the hardware, our Linode is a virtual machine. It's not a real computer. It's on a real computer, but it's not the computer. It's a virtual machine.
Which is kind of the way all hosting and servers are going.
Unless you pay for dedicated hosting, which is
no, but even then, like that's the end run right now. Like that's
Right.
the next big horizon. That
Because
hypervisors.
it's most economical is to have a few big machines, and then to use the entire machine, you need to split it up into smaller machines.
And also, unlike the old early days of virtualization, I mean, with hypervisors and Linux kernels.
and the stuff they have in the CPUs now, like vPro and VTX.
Yep. So basically, you have like
Or
running a
VXT.
virtual machine is not like the old days where you're basically emulating an entire hardware stack for this computer to think it's real. The computer knows it's fake and acts accordingly related to the hardware.
Yep. So if something happens to, say, the hardware that our Linode happens to be on, they just move it to another one. We don't even know that there's a problem, right? But Amazon, I get emails from them every once in a while, like, "Hey, yeah, that machine that your virtual machine is on had a hardware problem. You should move it." And I'm like, I don't have time to take that service down right now and bring it back up. Right? It's like, what do you mean the hardware broke that my machine was on? It's a virtual machine. Fucking move it live. Zen can do that. But
Yep.
they're not doing that. So that's sort of annoying.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like, Zen, if you have Zen servers, you can just live, while a computer is running, move it to a different machine.
You can move it to a
without
different
turning
data center.
without turning it off or disrupting service for even a millisecond.
It's kind of amazing.
But Amazon doesn't do that. So if you're buying an EC2 machine and it's running, and that particular physical machine that it is running on breaks, you'll actually go down. They'll let you know. You might even be able to detect that you went down if you use CloudWatch, which is a monitoring service, which is sort of has a little bit of jankiness to it. It doesn't monitor everything you want it to monitor, and it doesn't monitor it so quickly. Even if you pay for the detailed monitoring, it's like once a minute. So you're still gonna lose some minutes, right? If you're relying on CloudWatch, but it'll send you an email like, "Hey, your shit's down, fix it." It's like, what the fuck? My shit should never go down. What am I paying for? Right? I don't know. So yeah, but some of the other things they have, right? They've got what's it called? They have SimpleDB, which is like a really dumb. It's basically a database that's flat tables with no relations that you can use. They've got the RDS I already mentioned. Here's a MySQL server or an Oracle server. Elasticache, which is here's a Memcache server. Elastic Beanstalk is sort of this weird thing, which is if you write a Java application in a particular way, you can run it, instead of running it on machines, you can run it on an Elastic Beanstalk. If you run it on the Elastic Beanstalk, it's one click and that's it. You're good. It automatically scales the Beanstalk to handle whatever the traffic is. So if you suddenly get a slash dotting, they'll just power up your Beanstalk. It'll get really big and bust into the giant's house. And then when no one's visiting the next day because your site sucks and they hated it,
Back to a little bean.
back to a little tiny bean. Right? Just live, real-time auto-scaling if you have the kind of application that can run on that. That's pretty great if you can have that kind of application.
Yep. I guess in general, this whole like cloud thing, especially with Amazon, my personal use of it is that if I need a server for like testing, like I have an image or something, it's really easy to instantiate a bunch of whatever I need in a hurry and not have to physically rack them somewhere.
But I
Or-
mean, you can do that. Other hosting providers, like you can just go to Linode, you sign up, you'll have your Linode in a few minutes. But the Amazon interface is just like start machine, start machine, start machine. It just
And more importantly, stop machine. Like here's a good example. Say I've got a company. Well, maybe I do have a company where we have, we have to do QA on some software. So you need like 100 different environments to do QA to make sure, nothing's weird in some fiddly environment or
a
whatever.
lot of people are using it that way.
So you could have one of all those environments and maintain them all the time, or you can virtualize it. So that's good. Make a virtual image for each one and then run it on your Zen server locally.
But then your Zen server will take all night loading up an image, running it, turning it down, loading up a new one, running it, turning it
and you can
down.
run a lot at the same time on a Zen server, but I don't need a gigantic hunk of hardware capable of doing all this for the 4 times a year that something's released.
And then when it breaks, you have to fix it.
So Amazon,
If
you
the
have
hard
all
drives
these
crash,
machines.
you have to replace them.
You can have a machine with whatever Linux and whatever database on it you want, and you just turn it on, you're paying for it while it's running, do your test, turn it off.
Yep.
You can turn them all on at the same fucking time.
Yeah, you won't pay any more money for doing it that way. Here's the problem, though. If you just get an account as a normal person and start using it, there's a machine limit, 20 machines at once
Yep.
on EC2. To get more, you have to ask for more, and you have to give them a good reason why you want more, and then they'll probably give them to you. But if you go and say, I need 1,000 machines, they'll be like, no.
They might say, okay, but money.
Yeah, if you actually ask for if you send an email in like I need 1,000 machines and your reason is legitimate, they'll probably send a salesman to talk to you. But they actually have some, let me tell you some of the crazy things they have that people don't realize they have, right? So they have Amazon Import Export. You know what this is? You can send them a hard drive or a USB stick, pretty much anything with USB on it, right? Or serial ATA. They will plug it in to Amazon and load or unload data to or from it to S3 or from S3. So if you have an insane amount of data, let's say you got a terabyte of data.
Yeah, you're going to upload that shit?
You're going to upload that to S3 and pay the bandwidth cost, or you can pay the Amazon import-export fee, overnight them a drive, right? And they'll dump the terabyte of data into an S3 bucket of your choosing. Or the opposite. I've got a terabyte of data on my, I run Imgur. I have 10 terabytes of images people have uploaded. I want to put them on a hard drive and bring them to my house. You send them some drives and they'll let you download the S3 bucket onto the drives.
Yeah.
It does have this high cost, just to start. So it's not worth it unless the amount of data is already really big, like terabytes. If it's less than that, you're actually better off paying the bandwidth
There's also,
cost.
I haven't done this yet, but I'm pretty sure that if you use one of the open virtual machine image formats, like you make a virtual machine in like VirtualBox or whatever, if you use the right open formats, I'm pretty sure you can just put them on Amazon and run them.
No, you can't. Not that I know of.
Or maybe it's the virtual app machine. There's one thing that I know you can upload and run. I haven't done it yet because I haven't needed to.
The way it works is you have to actually, it's called an AMI, an Amazon Machine Instance. So you have to build an AMI, which is basically an ISO for Amazon or an image.
Amazon Web Services, let's see, VM Import. VM Import lets you import virtual machine images in any standard format.
Oh, that's new. I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, that's the thing
But
I'm
that
talking
just
about.
shows you, all they're really doing
Oh,
here.
wow, they accept more than it. Because I knew they took VMDK. They take VHD and some formats I don't know.
Did you see the newest VirtualBox actually supports 4 different formats? It's great.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, what a great improvement. It supports VMDK, VMX, and 2 other ones. It's like, whoa, that's awesome. That's something I didn't know about. But yeah,
I've been rocking the VirtualBox a lot lately.
yeah, but usually the thing is, VirtualBox is only good on Windows. If you try to use it on Linux or Mac, it
No,
sucks.
you run Linux on it on Windows.
Exactly what I
You
do.
don't run Windows on it on Linux.
No, not at all. But yeah, they've got, it's basically all they've really done is they took web hosting, just normal old hosting, and they kept adding features to it all over the place that have sort of made this crazy thing. I mean, they've got a queue service. It's not as good as running your own RabbitMQ or something like that.
Oh, it's really, dude, to upload an image, you literally, there's an API and they give you a tool that uses the API. It
Yeah,
just works.
if you use the API, you can do everything. But the console is where it's easy to do things.
And
right?
there are, for S3, if you want to do, some of the more advanced stuff, you can't just do it by default. But there are free, and I found some actually relatively cheap programs where people implement good interfaces through the API to do stuff on Amazon.
Yep, but it's like, they've got like load balancers and they got virtual private cloud where you can make like a closed network on Amazon and then link it to your network by paying money to get a VPN. Like it's crazy some of the stuff that they offer here.
There's a big move in that front in like big enterprise world.
Right, it's like you have some racks in your office, but you also want to add some servers to it that don't really need to be in your racks. You buy some Amazon machines.
Or they need to
but
be,
they might as well be on your network. They're
they
actually
need to
using
be
the DNS
in your production cage conceptually. Like
Yeah.
they need to be in the same network.
They're actually, effectively might as well be machines on your rack.
And something I've run into before is that even if you've got some rack space, you might not have enough power in the area, which is often problematic. Right at my previous company, we had a point where we couldn't get enough power in a rack to put more servers in it.
Wow. That's great. You didn't even had UPSs and like generators and
Well, no, it's the data center says you're getting the maximum number of amps we can provide currently.
Oh, okay. Yeah, power is a big thing people don't think about. So it's like you're out in here's the real thing about what Amazon means, right? What does this mean? What's the big deal about, a hosting company that happens to sell books and also, has all these extra stuff? You know what it means? Guys, system administrators are kind of in trouble, right?
Well, no, they're not. You'd think they are, but I have watched what Amazon things look like when people who aren't competent system administrators try to use it. So
but the thing is, right, is that most people out there just, it's not about the systems for most people. It's about the applications, right? So if you have developers, good developers can do this. They don't need, right? But, like at work, I just do it. I don't need someone else to do this for me. But if we had racks in the office with this, right, and they had internet connections and routers and everything, I couldn't do it. That's all. That's a whole job.
Like, all right, say Scott's managing the server at his company just because he's the one who's competent to do it. Fine.
Right, like I can manage the software on one or two machines.
Yep, but let's say...
But I couldn't manage the network
The machine
shit.
locks hard. So have you set up out-of-band communication to reboot it hard?
Yeah, it's like now I got to get up and go into the server room.
Actually, most good data centers have remote hands where you call a guy and say, hey, go reboot my fucking server.
Right, but you see, the point is like at that point when you actually have to deal with that stuff, that becomes another job, right? So for someone like me, it's like I can't do that job and the job I'm doing. That would be two jobs. But now Amazon is doing that job instead of an employee at our company doing that job.
Yeah, it's almost like Amazon, like these services, they're great for the low end. Like you're a small company, you don't have the resources, you don't want to commit to buying hardware, the upfront costs of, buying all these servers to do stuff. It really reduces the upfront cost to get going. Mm-hmm. And at the very top end, you just can't manage because you've got so much stuff that's going on. You need so much horsepower. It's more economical to use the Amazon stuff in bulk.
Right.
The middle in between the two, there's kind of this dip where it is more economical to have a system administrator and your own racks.
Yeah, well, there's two things going on here, right? Number one, you'd actually be surprised. Amazon has done everything in their power to get every freaking certification in the goddamn universe that they can get. So, like, even if you're a sensitive financial or a government thing, they actually have a thing called GovCloud specifically for hosting of U.S. government things because it meets all the regulations necessary to do so.
So, anonymous fun kids, grow up, get a degree, work for that, profit.
They specifically went out and got like FSMA certifications and all these certifications so that financial people wouldn't be afraid to use their shit. So they could go to big enterprises and be like, it's okay to use our Amazon cloud. We have all the certs. Number two, the real economical problem with Amazon is the server sizes on EC2, right? They recently added the micro size. The micro size is so cheap, it's actually free. If you never had an Amazon Web Services account, which is actually not that many people. For example, if you used Mechanical Turk like 5 years ago, guess what? You've got an account. If you've got an Alexa account, guess what? You've got an account, right? But if you've never had an account before and you open an Amazon Web Services account, right? Not a regular book buying account, but a web services account, which will be linked to your book buying account, but whatever. You get one free micro instance for a year. And after that, if you pay in advance, let's say I want to buy a micro instance forever because I'm running a tiny blog and it can totally do it. If I pay for 3 years of micro instance, guess how much it costs?
$5.
$80 for 3 years.
That's not too bad.
If
And the
you-
micro instance
if you
is
pay
powerful
upfront.
enough for like a little web server.
We pay like $40 a month for the lineup. They pay in advance, but it's like $1,000 a year or something like
Yep.
that. But it's way better than the micro instance. The thing with the micro instance, they're not kidding when they say it's a micro. It has no swap. It gets one CPU unit, as they refer to it, right? It's mad weak. But for, most people's stuff, it's enough. Your little blog that no one visits, you could probably put 10 of those in a micro instance, right? It's no problem at all. But here's the thing. The small instance. Here's the problem. The small instance is actually not quite as good as our Linode, maybe similar, whatever. But it costs at very minimum like $80 a month. Whereas you can get a Linode for $20 a month. So it's that space in between the micro instance and the small instance that you can go to regular web hosting. Don't go to Amazon because you're going to lose money as soon as you need a small instance. You're going to lose money because the bandwidth costs their scale. So if too many visitors come, suddenly you owe them a lot of money. Whereas on another web host, you probably would have
Well, here, to give you
the
guys a
same
sense of
bill
scale,
every month.
for the database ones, the RDS, if you want to get those, there are a ton of different
They're,
sizes.
they're the
but-
same sizes as the EC2 machines.
So I'm just going
a
to go
small
through.
RDS is a small EC2.
I'm going to go through just the RAM on them. They have a small, large, and extra large.
Yep.
Small, 1.7 gigabytes of RAM.
You don't need that much.
Large, 7.5 gigabytes of RAM.
That's way too much.
Extra large, 15.
Yeah, they're also missing a medium size, right? The only really medium size they have of anything.
I think that's on purpose.
It is. The only really medium size that they have is the high CPU medium, which has 5 CPU cores and like 7 gigs of RAM or something like that. It's pretty crazy. Or no, I think maybe it's 1.7. I don't know. But they really don't have a medium machine, like something that has, say, 2 cores, 4 gigs of RAM, something.
Well, but notice what I just said earlier about the business need for this, or the personal need. The startup, the beginning, the small people, they need it. The high-end people, they need it. It's in the middle where the usefulness of this kind of drops off for a while.
The space between micro and small and the space between small and large, is where they really hurt. The other problem they have is that the micro instance can be 64 or 32-bit. The small and a couple other sizes can only be 32-bit. All the big sizes are 64-bit only. If you have a 64-bit application, but you need the small size, you're shit out of luck. You can't. You need to get at minimum the large.
Oh, wow. Okay, the pricing model. I haven't looked at this in a while because I only use S3 personally now. Like, I haven't used the rest forever. I poked at it, but I didn't really use it. Data transfer, the rates go up through, next 524 terabytes a month, this price.
Yeah, it's like...
Next 4 petabytes, this price.
It's like taxes.
More than 5 petabytes, this size.
Yep. It's like taxes. You get taxed this % on your first amount of income and this % on the next amount of income. That's how it works. But yeah, it's a really cool thing. It's really out there. And actually, it is getting more and more popular with time. I mean, it's already popular, but it's getting more popular.
It's something...
I went to the Amazon Web Summit, and I heard the CTO of Amazon talk. He was actually pretty cool. Not super cool, but pretty cool. And their room had like 1,000 people in it.
Well, it's
hundreds of,
where
not 1,000, but hundreds of people.
In the technology industry, computer, if you're a developer or an IT guy, it is worth your while to at least know what this is, know how to use it, be able to, like, if someone said, hey, I need an instance of something for something, to like know the basics, because it's a huge in-demand skill as kind of like a baseline IT skill going forward.
Because even if somebody's a regular old system administrator or somebody's knows how to do hosting of websites or whatever it is that you're hosting, right? That gets you a long way because in the end, all this really is Linux machines, sometimes Windows machines, but really it's Linux machines, right? And you SSH to them and you work with them, and it's 90% Linux. But if someone doesn't have the knowledge of the specifics of all these different Amazon services and how they work, they won't be able to extract the maximum value from it, and they won't be able to make it, to get it to work properly. You really have to learn a lot of Amazon-specific stuff to get the full value here. So if you bother to learn it, which you can if you're just learning it and no one's using any of the stuff you set up, it costs you all next to nothing, pennies a month. On my Amazon bill personally is like $1 a month. right? Because you're not actually having a high traffic application because it's pay per use. So if no one visits it, you don't pay a bandwidth bill. And if you turn your machines off when you're not using them, you don't pay for the CPU time. So you can learn everything there is to learn for next to nothing and then get a really good job. Because someone out there really needs someone who is a master of this shit.
Yep.
Yep.
This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
It's Monday, October 24th. Fuck.
We are most amused
Of
at
all
your
the
messing up of the date.
Possible things to go wrong, that was the worst possible thing.